The Razer Viper V2 Pro is Razer's answer to Logitech's popular mouse, the G Pro X Superlight. Both come at a steep price of $150. I will be answering which mouse is best for you. I will start with the most important part of picking these mice, the shape. They both have a very safe shape that covers a lot of grips, but they are still very different. The Viper side profile is much more curved in, and the back of the mouse flares out much more. The Superlight's side profile is almost like a straight line. This makes the Viper feel wider in the hand. However, the Superlight's larger hump makes it feel more filled out inside the back of the pan. Both are medium-sized mice and should fit smaller hands depending on the grip, and larger-sized hands could also fit as well. I will explain what you should pick depending on how you play the game. If you have much more of your hand up the mouse, then the bigger hump of the Superlight will make you feel more leaned in and higher on your mouse. If your grip requires much more room between your palm and the mouse, then the wider feeling and shorter hump of the Viper should be better than the Superlight. If your grip is relaxed like a relaxed fingertip or claw, then the flat profile of the Superlight should feel more comfortable. The more flared inside profile of the Viper should make people with more aggressive grips feel more consistent. A big factor in the Viper is that the mouse button space is much greater than the Superlight. I had problems fitting my larger fingers on the Superlight than on the Viper. I probably did not cover everything, but I think I covered a lot of grips. Now let's move on to the sensor and battery life. You should be okay with either sensor between the Superlight and the Viper for 95% of the time. However, the Viper does well on all surfaces, while the Superlight has a low chance of spin out on some surfaces, but most center pass should not be an issue. I wouldn't pick the Viper over the Superlight because of this unless you have a surface that can have problems with the Superlight. Now looking at the battery life, the Viper, rated for 80 hours, should beat the Superlight's rated 70 hours of battery life. However, in my testing, the Superlight has not died and is still at 10% after a week and a half, while the Viper is on its second charge and has 80% left. I checked other reviews to see if this is true, and to the looks of it, it is true according to other people as well. Now the Viper has USB-C while the Superlight has the outdated micro USB. I would still pick the Superlight even after this fact for better battery life. If you value battery life, then the Superlight beats the Viper easily in this category. The coating on the Viper is the regular chalky feeling coating that is not at all grippy. The Superlight has a better feeling matte coating that is grippy. Now they both come with grip tape, which I feel like you have to use for the Viper, but the coating on the Superlight is good on its own. I even dry click better on the Superlight than the Viper, which does not matter at all since they have some sort of prevention to get higher CPS. The Viper has optical switches that completely prevents double clicking, and the Superlight has a debounce to around something like 10 ms. The debounce on the Superlight technically only caps the CPS, so if you are a butterfly clicker like me who already uses 10 ms debounce, the Superlight is technically better. The Superlight can still double click unlike the Viper, but has a capped CPS of around 16. You can still short drag a little bit, so the Superlight is more flexible on the CPS, but don't think you get godlike CPS with either mouse. The skates that come with the Viper are good and thick. These beat the Superlight's thin mouse skates, especially on rougher surfaces. They can be both improved with the aftermarket skates, but are not required to make either mouse good. The weight on the Viper is 59 grams and is slightly lighter than the 63-gram Superlight. I've seen some people say the Viper is 58 grams and the Superlight is 60 grams, but the conclusion is still the same. Technically, the Viper is lighter, but I would not have even known that it was lighter. They are both perfectly balanced in weight as well. The switches on the Viper V2 Pro are Razer's Gen 3 optical switches, and these are way better than other optical switches and do not feel mushy at all. They are crisp and extremely light. They are perfect for jitter clicking. I would have to say for jitter clicking, the Superlight is slightly lighter and easier to jitter. In everyday use, the click feel is better on the Viper in terms of tactility, and the side buttons feel better on the Viper than on the Superlight. In-game, I've performed way better using the side buttons on the Viper since they are not mushy at all and stick out slightly more than the Superlight. The scroll wheel on the Viper and Superlight are just average, and there's nothing much with them. The Viper has a louder scroll wheel than the Superlight, and clicking on the scroll wheel on the Superlight gives you a silent feedback, while the Viper gives you an audible click. I prefer the Superlight scroll wheel because scrolling fast, the Viper just feels way less smooth and does not have more defined steps than the Superlight. In game, they both felt fine, but the Superlight is more satisfying to scroll with. The build quality of the Viper is excellent and is on the same level as the Superlight with its brick-like build quality. They both have no creaks anywhere except that the Superlight has very slight creaking on the bottom of the mouse. I had to press extremely hard to get it to creak, but no human would be using their mouse like that. The Viper has slightly less wobble on the clicks than the Superlight. The Viper is technically better in this category. The build quality difference is too small even to notice, but technically the Viper does win in this category. I'm going to wrap it here. The Viper has better stock skates, slightly better build quality, snappier side buttons, a more reliable sensor, and sharper main clicks. The Viper is worse than the Superlight in coding, CPS, battery life, and the Superlight has easier and lighter clicks. Jittering on the Superlight felt easier. If you're more experienced, the slightly lighter clicks won't feel as different as it was for me. The Viper was still good for jittering, but the lighter clicks on the Superlight felt better to me when I was jittering. The CPS is only slightly better on the Superlight because you can still double click and short drag with a cap on the CPS, while the Viper cannot do this at all. Keep in mind that if you already bought either mouse, they are both outstanding and reliable mice, and you cannot go wrong with either. If you were to pick one of the mice, pick it for the shape. I think the shape is the most different between these mice. All the other things I talked about are if you have a pretty standard grip that would fit both of them. If I were to pick one of these mice without thinking about the shape, I would choose the Superlight because of its super light clicks, battery life, smoother scroll wheel, and coding. I sometimes hate the feeling of grip tape, and having it almost required on the Viper is a slight deal breaker for me. That's all I have to say about both mice. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing or liking this video. If you disliked it, then please tell me why and leave a dislike on the video. That's pretty much it. Peace.